This one is essentially with all of the coordinators of the 4 pilot projects, and is moderated by Luigi Rebuffi, who is the Secretary General of the European Cybersecurity Organization. And I think the idea of this panel is to look at the future. Where are we headed? With that, I hand the floor to Luigi Rebuffi. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mark. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for inviting me to moderating and participating, because I've been told I also have to participate in the discussion. So in this panel, we will have first kind of, I would say, a wrap up from the 4 panels. Situation, okay, we heard a lot these days, situation, but just the saying, I mean, how does the panel see to move on? So to move on from now on, starting from 21, 22, and that's really the next steps. And I will also add at the end what is coming up in the next year for ECSO. So this is our, let's say, 5 minutes each, and then we move on really to the future. The future means we will have the competence center, we will have all the new structures set up from 23 on. The pilots will have formally terminated. How things will really, how you think that really things will develop at that time. I tried to be kind of brainstorming, not to be, if possible, too much politically correct, but just to be inventive, like a science fiction scenarist. And then actually I would like to end up with a vision for 2030. So at that time, we could assume that all this discussion about the center and so on is no more about how to do it, but what to do it. What should be needed to do, and when should we start, and what kind of configuration the society will have in 2030, and what should be done. This is very important, supposing that we are really working together in the community that is envisaged. So, long story, let's see how we can manage, and if we manage to do this and keep it interesting, because it's late, it's long, it was a long journey till now. So let's start with in alphabetic order, as usual, with Concordia. Gabi, are you here? Dobar dan.
Yes, hello. Hello, Luigi, hello all. Yeah, I'm here. I think it was a really good discussion and presentations the old days, and I think everybody saw that what all the pilots are doing, and that they're doing actually a real good work. I would not like to sum up again the very good aspects from each pilot, for example, also either from Concordia, all the parts we are in. I'll say what are we, where we are, and where should we go, as you said, in the future. So I think the pilots were very good in terms of bringing this fragmentation over and to say, how can we build together this digital ecosystem? How can we work together between different institutions, different stakeholders, research, industry, and so on? Because often from industry, I hear in discussions that we are almost in a digital colony and we are dependent on software, which is non-European. I do not agree with this, and I always object and say, no, Europe already showed it at least twice with us against Boeing, and of the other side, Galileo against GPS, that Europe can do much more as probably we believe in each other in this part. So I would not accept that we have the hyperscalers and that we are dependent. What we need is certainly leadership and innovation. We need trust. We need cooperation. And I think the pilots, so far as we are now here, tried to crawl. We are crawling now. Let's try now to walk together and to speed up, especially this interconnection, because we can succeed only in regulating, having regulations over regulations. We need to succeed also in building own European IT products and services. And something was shown from the pandemic situation, then we have seen how dependent are we, either from supply chains and from other parts. And as also the Commission said, we need a strong Europe, secure data, secure computing, secure connectivity. We are capable, and my point would be really, let's take the courage, let's have also the leadership in innovation, have digital sovereignty seen really as a holistic viewpoint. We cannot have only technology sovereignty. We need also capacities, we need skills, we need investments, we need industry who invest in development of European IT products and services. And my point is, we can do it, and Europe can do it. The point is, are we going to do it in terms? It is a teamwork, it is a cooperation and trust. And I think the point here is, again, we learn to crawl, each pilot self. Now the next part is let's work together and build this digital ecosystem, the European digital ecosystem, because only this is the answer to China and US and to the other big players. And I really hope that we, the pilots, are building the community, all pilots here, for Europe. And it is nice to have European competence centers, national competence centers, but everything we need to work together, bring together and build really the strong leadership in building European IT products and services. Otherwise, we will end like a digital colony, and I really hope that we will have the strength, the leadership, as Europe already did it several times, to make also the European hyperscaler, the European products and services. And if now somebody says that we cannot build, we cannot compete against Amazon, against Google, against Apple, maybe we should think about it and define what parts do we have. In some parts we need control, in some parts we need to develop mechanisms like zero trust, in some parts we have to develop, especially in security critical parts, quantum technologies, quantum computing, quantum communication. There we have chances, and also so that we can build European IT products and services. This would be my vision for Concordia, and Concordia is doing this. Concordia is growing. Now we have almost 60 partners. We are building even more, and that's the part how Europe should build, how Europe should interconnect, and to work together, to work with other pilots, but also to the industry research and investment and startups which are not part of the pilots. We need to include them all. Thank you.
Thank you, Gabby, for your Concordia part. Now we move to listen also to Kai Rannenberg for the CyberSec for Europe. So, your vision of the future, 5 minutes. Kai? We cannot hear you. We cannot read lips, huh? No, I still have no return from Kai. And you are not muted. So maybe, if you don't mind, Kai, maybe we move on until maybe you fix the problem. We can move on to Wim. Huh? Wim, maybe you can.
Yes.
Yes, please. Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, great. Yeah, well, so a lot has already been said during these 2 days and by all the speakers, and it was for sure a very interesting exchange of ideas and presentation of things that have been already realized or that are ongoing in terms of activities and developments. So I think it was very, very successful and enriching. But of course, we have to look forward and we have to think about where do we want to go 23 and beyond. A lot of the activities, ECSO has done a lot of network building and building communities. The pilots are doing it as well around solutions. They're building systems and solutions. But there still is, in my opinion, an important aspect missing. And the important aspect is to create that ecosystem that fosters innovation through SMEs, through startups. When we look at the big GAFA and other, we look at Google, we look at Apple, we look at open source popular solutions like Linux, for instance. They were not created top down in a Boeing or in an Airbus type of fashion. They were created by young, enthusiastic people, students with an idea, and that went forward, and they built a solution. They built a software. They built a concept. They implemented it, and they were very successful. And I think it's that mentality that we should foster in Europe to fail early, fail often, but always move forward and learn from your mistakes. And our young people, our young graduates, should be encouraged, should be provided with investment capital in order to develop these ideas, so that we can create that ecosystem and that we can create the solutions of the future within Europe. And I think there is certainly a great challenge to change that mentality in Europe, to be more daring, to be more entrepreneurial, to really start companies, develop ideas, and try to be successful over and over and over again. And then we will, in my opinion, see the Googles and the Amazons and the Apples of the future being created and being successful in Europe. I think there is a big challenge there. I think that is what I wanted to add to this early part of the discussion. See that Kai is back.
Kai, do you want to intervene now?
Hello, this is Kai speaking. Can you now hear me?
Yes, yes.
Ah, perfect. And probably you can even see me, at least I can see me. Okay, I think the first example that and how we're going to work together, we've seen already thanks to Wim. If something, we are 4 pilots and we are together, we're obviously resilient. So if whatever happens to one of us, and at least one of the other ones is willing and able to come in and help out and bridge the gaps that are existing. And actually decentralization, even though we now have a center location, was one of the elements that I wanted to mention. We have to make sure that even though it's great that we now have a location, it's also important that we don't forget that we want to be a network. And again, Wim has demonstrated that very nicely, obviously now. I'd like to pick up on a few of the future activities. I think what Gabi has said already in terms of what we generally need to do, I can fully subscribe to. And now, what are the areas? Let me try to point out a few of the areas that we want to work out. And Gabi has mentioned Airbus and Galileo, and both examples that we have already dealt with in our discussions, and they actually have similar things. So both of them, we're trying to be in Europe, and we have set them up to make sure that Europe has a stance on them. And they have also differences. Airbus is a successful model for how to succeed in the commercial market. And because obviously at least buying and building and selling of aircraft has been working on a global commercial market. It has been successful and with joint efforts. And Galileo is an example for an infrastructure service, and which also needed to work, even though so far the commercial pickup hasn't been as, let's say, intensive as it has been for Airbus. And that's basically because we have infrastructure. We had a discussion a bit on the example when it was about the server engine for browsers that, and just recently the Mozilla Foundation had to drop because they didn't have the resources anymore. It was now picked up by the Linux Foundation, but I think it was a warning call for us in Europe to say, hey, when such essential elements of infrastructure that sometimes are only one of a kind, or basically if they would go away, would leave only one of a kind, in this case actually the respective Google Chromium engine, and when they are going away, and we may end up in a monopoly, it's time for Europe to actually be prepared for it, of course, actually be prepared even before, to see where are these kind of monopoly structures developing and where maybe the market isn't fully successful yet or successful anymore, and then to come in. And that obviously is not just do something in the middle of August when Mozilla makes an announcement, but we need to have this long-term viewing capacity. We have to do similar things also for hardware. I mean, for example, the sale of ARM is an issue, even though ARM is mainly located not in the country that is part of the European Union anymore, but still it has a major European issue. So we have to look at these kind of aspects. We have to look, of course, at a number of applications when it comes to hardware. Again, probably, and where is Europe relatively strong in many IoT-related activities. So that is industry, that is still things like cars, even though there is competition coming from elsewhere also. So all of that, I think we need to be working on, and again, together, of course. Another important element, I think we've been talking about digital colonies and avoiding that. I think we also have to avoid to become digital banana republics. Because usually what makes a banana republic is also a relatively weak internal setting of democratic processes, of influence, and so on. And I think one way to avoid being a colony is also first avoid being a banana republic, which means, again, we need to defend all of the citizens' values that are to be defended by cybersecurity. Also, when we define our cybersecurity, we need to make sure that we respect those values. And also when we set up our center, I mean, we now have the center. We still don't know exactly how the governance of the center is going to look. For that, we have at least the trialogue today happening. And I was very enchanted by the option that our EP member said that when it comes to the establishment of the decentralized and non-NGO groups and how they're being established in the new governance model, that there has been some movement since July. So there will be some kind of constitutional establishment, hopefully, for them. And let's hope we can build on that in case it doesn't work out as we hope, or at least I know the governance people in CyberSec for Europe are hoping. But I suppose that this holds for all of us. And then we have to see how we deal with the scenario. So we have a number of tasks, and very often I think, let's say, a strong, decentralized citizen, SME-oriented, so looking after the smaller players, an approach that will help us to make us strong as a whole. And I think that has eaten up my 5 minutes easily.
Thank you, Kai. Don't worry. We still have some time. So we go on with the pilot. So now we move to Thibaut. Bonjour, Thibaut.
Hello. Oui, je pense.
Okay, très bien. So Thibaut, Sparta now.
Yeah.
Sparta time.
So a lot have been said before, so it's not easy to add new, very interesting elements. But I'm going to highlight 3 things that I believe are interesting and that are currently in the air. The first one is that we definitely need to share our infrastructure and to build together infrastructure, software, software platforms, systems that we can access with clear legal rules, easy access, clear IP consequences, and so forth. So the challenges are not only technical, obviously. Another aspect which I believe is important is to acknowledge that we are not going to build everything we use, but we already know it, and that we should strongly develop our capacities to assess, to evaluate, and to characterize the systems on which we rely, but that we don't build ourselves. And finally, as Kai said, fundamental European values are especially important. We are shifting towards a digital world, and we need to be sure that we don't forget it in order to keep our strategic autonomy, because at the end of the day, if we want to remain autonomous, it's to decide what we want to do according to our values.
Okay, that's it. Very short.
Yep.
Thank you. So in this case, allow me to say a few words about ECSO, as been asked. So ECSO, well, you know, it's we started signing the PPP agreement back in beginning of July 16 at the European Parliament with Commissioner Oettinger. And we were called for developing this cooperation between the Commission and the industry to raise priorities and participation of the private sector in Horizon 2020. I think we did a good job, but we went well beyond that because we started bringing together the community, this community that now we are developing together. We went beyond the simple research activities, because immediately the Commission, when we have been created, said, can you help about certification? And we have started a lot of certification activities. But then somehow we recognize that research or certification are not sufficient if you don't build up the ecosystem. And here Gabi, very strong message, said the importance of the ecosystem, to grow the ecosystem. So this is actually what also we have tried to do from the very beginning. So we had to deal with education, cyber ranges. For this, we are very close with ECHO on research. But for this, we are all close with all the pilots. But also activities that you have seen recently to support to SMEs, matchmaking with investors. Now we are launched the Europe Cybersecurity Made in Europe label, for which we have 13 partners delivering this label around Europe. We have also launching this initiative for a fund of fund in cybersecurity of $1 billion. By the way, we had also the honor or an article on the Wall Street Journal, which is very, very unusual to have a European initiative being mentioned there. So we have done and we are doing a number of things. For the future, well, I just received this morning a letter from the Commission say that I read what they wrote, that ECSO, like the 4 pilots, will be an integral part of the new ecosystem. So we are obliged to work together in the future, in the new ecosystem. That's the good news. The question will be how. Because you still, as a pilot, you still have 2 years to go, somehow, more or less. We as ECSO, well, we are ending our PPP formally in this end of December. And we are discussing with the Commission how to continue this cooperation. And we have strong support also from all the presidents
on the smartphones. In Europe, there has been a very almost some drama, at least in the academic world, between 2 solutions. One which is called decentralized, and the other one which is called centralized, to access to the APIs provided by Google and Apple for the smartphones. and other countries chose not to do so, with some idea that this way they would keep some autonomy with regards to Apple and Google, but with important consequences, since today, in France, for instance, 2 iPhones which execute the contact tracing application might not detect each other because the French application does not have access to the API. I think that this is a very good example related to a crisis where the autonomy and cybersecurity issues have very concrete implications. And for 2030, to avoid this situation to happen again, and in particular in emergency or crisis situations.
Okay, thank you. I would have liked to come back to the intervention of Gabi, because he insisted a lot of investments, which are very important. We are looking in ECSO at this issue. I think we still have to converge in Europe, also among the pilots, what are really the strategic technology services to be developed, not only for development, by the way, what is really sovereignty. This is something, this is a job I think we have to develop in the coming years. Investments, potential investment is there. We have seen in this period where we are discussing this creation of a fund for 1 billion. There is a growing interest, but at the same time, we see that the European market is still immature. The investments, you know, for the companies are still of the order of few million euro. There are very few, if none, European companies who are asking for investment capital venture in cybersecurity, I mean, above 10 millions. Because I suppose they think they are not ready. They are not ready to go to a wider market because the European market is still very fragmented. So somehow it's a catch-22. We want to develop European companies, but European companies are not ready to develop because the market is fragmented. And at the same time, we saw, when was it, yesterday, 2 days ago, that the American NortonLifeLock purchased Avira, antivirus German company, for $360 million. $360 million, not less. I don't see many European companies say, okay, let's consolidate with my competitors and buy them and make a big shot. Here we are. In Europe, we still are maybe not ready, or not ready from the maturity of the market, not ready to scale up. And this is really what we need, the scaling up. Startups, I know we have many startups. We have many seed money. We have many funding from few 100,000 or 1 million euro. But what about when companies are growing, when they reach the almost unicorn level and can really be leader in the market, can really promote and bring to the market those technologies that you are also developing? This is something which is totally missing in Europe. And this is where I think we have to work for the future, at different level, investor level, as we're trying to do, but also with the large companies, because even the large companies, to not only to consolidate, but also to have stable suppliers of a certain size. Suppliers which are not going to the US simply because they find a better market there, and then they purchase there. Or simply also at political level, because the politicians, if you really want to develop this strategic digital sovereignty, if you prefer to call it, they have to be aware that we have to use as much as possible solutions which are trusted, European, possibly. Not everything can be done in Europe, but this way. So I think we have here a big challenge. And let me allow you to put to make a different point of view from what also Gabby said at the beginning. Gabby is very politically correct, and she repeated many times the view of the Commission, the three main priorities for sovereignty. I agree with them, but I disagree, because, you know, for me, when I was reading this first, okay, this is the kind of message you have from people coming up from political science. They have to give three main messages, because otherwise people don't retain more than three. Well, we are scientific, and we can retain a bit more than three messages. And we know that those three topics are not sufficient to provide Europe with a good level of autonomy, sovereignty, whatever. We have a lot of other strategic technologies which are around. They cannot be, they could be, but cannot be, from my point of view, resumed in only those three topics. And that's a danger I think we have with cybersecurity, because cybersecurity is not coming up in any of this discussion up to a certain level. It's just hidden 2 levels down. And okay, we need high performance computing, we need connectivity, we need data, but people, even politicians, have to understand that you could do all this. This is these are the engine for the future. But if you don't protect the engine, you can explode, like the engine of Elon Musk yesterday when coming back to Earth, if you have seen. So, Gabby, I see that you want to speak. Go on. Unmute, please. Unmute.
I will try.
Yes, it's done.
Okay. Of course, I have to be first of all. I'm a professor, and I am not always correct, because I'm telling what I'm feeling. And if you have heard Luigi first, then you would heard that these 3 parts were just the technology sovereignty, that about the technology. But today you also heard that Concordia is advocating a holistic approach to digital sovereignty with a lot of topics, and something like investment, like education, like skill, like certification, like technology. Technology is just a part of it. And so it's not just technology, it's not just technology sovereignty. Therefore, we oppose this also and say we have to take a holistic view. So the other part is, of course, I see in the chat that Velizar had said, hi Velizar, you know myself, or we know each other. Of course, digital sovereignty cannot be without addressing defense and space. And so there are also synergy potentials, saying especially what funds can be applied, having, for example, to get synergies between civil, defense, and space sector. Of course, this is, I think, an important part. And answering then to Wim, of course, we need to do something which is like threat intelligence, for example. It's a really nice part. In Concordia, we're building this threat intelligence for Europe and from our perspective. So to have aspects from telecom sector, we heard today the finance sector, but there are also other sectors. And for example, in the telco sector, having 5 providers, building trust, I think it's really the most important part, building trust, we can build something. And after, now we all go in parallel, the next step certainly is to combine, to see how can we bring all these initiatives that we have in the all 4 pilots together, and to see how to build really this from early warning systems, situational awareness. Nothing new for me, that how can we build this together? You cannot imagine. So everything where cyber is something written on a small company, there are 100 millions that you recap that get invested. So my point here is that we need to be fast. We need to be serious and say not, what is a little bit missing is that we are all, right, from my perspective, but apologize, maybe I'm politically too correct, that we don't have the big, think big. We always say, who do we talk at the competence center X? Who do we approach this time? This is everything what we have to do, absolutely. But we need to have a vision. What is our vision for Europe? What is our vision for Europe, and how, say, the first smartphones were Nokia and Siemens? We had network components like Siemens in Europe. We had a lot of IT technology in Europe. This has disappeared. So to say digital sovereignty is really a complex and multi-dimension aspect we have, from the technology, from political industry, from investment, and so on. And we need to see it really holistic. And I cannot say it more clear that we need to find a European way. We need to build this digital ecosystem, the European digital ecosystem, together with all stakeholders together. You need to bring industry in, you need to bring public bodies in, you need to bring research in, startups, and together build this. And I really hope that the pilots are bringing the blueprint for this cooperation, for building this European ecosystem. Because otherwise, we are also, what's the most important part is certainly building trust. This was also a very nice concluding session, asking Johan Lepasar from ENISA, Jiří Šefti from EDA, and all the European and Parliament and so, and say, what is the roadmap for Europe in just one word? And they said, well, there were 3 words. They said cooperation, trust, and again cooperation. So there are 2 words. And I think all of them agreed about this. And I hope that the pilots will provide a basis for real. It would be a pity that the ecosystem we are building now disappears in 2 years. And so really hope that we can bring together all pilots and to make them sustainable, the community, because the competence centers are not enough. And them together, bring them in, build this part. With the Atlas, we have the knowledge who is where, and the part is now how we can really build and make sustainable this digital ecosystem. Well, this is my vision for Europe, to have a strong Europe, strong IT Europe, and I hope really that we can achieve it. I'm still optimistic. I'm often confronted with people who are very pessimistic in terms that we are already a digital colony, coming especially from the industry part, but this would be really my vision for that. And I'm certainly not political correct, Luigi.
I would like maybe if you could develop maybe a vision for 2030. Where Europe would like to be in 2030. Gabi set up some global vision for Europe in the future, but try to project ourselves in 2030. Where do we want to be?
Where we want to be in 2030, Europe digital sovereign. It will be not digital power, but it should not be digital colony. So in terms of having control over data, networks, communication, having own IT capabilities, own IT services building, having really built, for example, quantum computers in Europe, building quantum communication in Europe. For example, the chip technology, the wafer technology, everything is bought out. But there was a strong, let's say it is a still strong chip technology in Europe. Have European data sphere. The data of Europeans should remain in Europe, not being somewhere around. Build really, for example, Gaia X is a nice initiative. It's a good initiative. Federated cloud parts, very good. Let's make it a reality, not to have then the hyperscalers inside. Have professors and research and excellence in science about also AI development. And the more AI is developing, for example, also self-healing, self-driving, self-X systems, you have to trust your AI. You have to trust even more the technology. The more advanced we are, the more you have to trust the technology. And if you don't know what's inside, if you don't know explainable AI, how AI is working, you will not trust it. And the point is, if you don't have anything else, like here we have hardware software, then you use it. But the point is, the more we are developing, the more in 2030, we need to trust the technology. Otherwise, all our industry 4.0 and everything else, we are behind and we are losing really to be on the eye level of the really from US, China, whatever. And I think we need to speed up. We are too slow.
Thank you, Gabi. We move now. I wanted to ask, I think Kai also wanted to intervene, but also for you, Kai, to see, because I know you're always following this privacy, citizens issue and so on. My question to you was exactly how you see all these issues in 2030. But maybe you wanted also to say something else. If you unmute, if you manage to unmute.
Good point. Thanks a lot. So 2030, if I remember correctly, is among other things also is one of the milestones that the European Commission has set up for Europe being more climate friendly. And that, I think, leads directly to transport and given the relative strength of the European industry in automotive to automotive. I mean, Gabi was telling us about Siemens and Nokia and communication networks and how that has gone away over the last, let's say, 15 to 20 years. And of course, we have to make sure that not exactly the same is going to happen to the automotive car transport industry. So probably also trains beyond cars. And given 2030 is now the big goal there for having a more eco-friendly transportation and all kinds of things being more eco-friendly, which includes a lot of boost of software into this domain. We need to make sure that things are working there. And if you, as you talked about privacy, there is a very old German movie, I'm sure there are other European movies also, which give scenarios on how people move in cars. And for example, in the Nazi time in Germany, people were doing a resistance because they had decentralized cars. It was a fully centralized and controlled car. That kind of resistance that in those days was possible wouldn't be possible. I hope we don't have a political system that is moving into that direction. But as you said, we should not be politically correct. We have to have the full, and we have to think the full spectrum of things that are happening. So decentralization is essential, and decentralized movement, I think, is very, very essential. And Thibault was mentioning the issues with COVID-19 and protection. I remember somebody said in future all of the usage of public transport should be pre-reserved. That was something that was in discussion. I think that moved away, fortunately. The idea to be spontaneously all of this pre-reserved things. But when it comes to at least local public transport and even long distance transport, it's important that we keep this. So beside naming all of these challenges, I think some of the positive things should be, do we indeed need to maybe highlight cybersecurity and civilized cybersecurity higher so that we get an own DG or commissioner for it in the European level? Is that something like yesterday's, and I think Mark Miller it was, who mentioned the European cybersecurity czar. And maybe we need such a function. I'm not sure whether czar is exactly the right function, the right job description, because czar is obviously an kind of make sure that the Green Deal is an cyber-secure, democracy-friendly, freedom-preserving Green Deal, and to make sure that we don't run that they can pay for educating their children and feeding them. And smart manufacturing is also, of course, also happening in cybersec for you.
Indeed, by public procurement preferred, and that are available to our industry, to our customers. There is certainly a lot of effort to be done. Resources are limited. You can of course try to be holistic and try to cover everything, and ideally that we should do that. Where and how the money will be spent, and that is something that we should probably try to address during the months and years to come, to try together to make the right choices on where to spend our resources in order to get the largest benefit from our investments. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Thibault, last in the sequence, I'm sorry, that's the sequence which have been given. Tell us about your view 2030.
I'm going to answer with a question at the end, because you mentioned earlier that there was this one of the fundamental differences between Europe and the United States, for instance, in terms of market, is that the European market is fragmented. However, it's not fragmented only for the cybersecurity field. It's something which is known in other sectors as well. And though I think this is a major difficulty that we face, this fragmentation, and although we are doing a lot of efforts to push forwards and to cooperate, to build great things, I would be curious, and I have to admit myself that I'm not yet up to date on this question. Do we have an idea of what worked from other areas, other fields, to address this difficulty? And cybersecurity has specificities with regards to more traditional industries and the whole computing industry, IT industry. But could we learn some lessons from what others achieved in order to address this concern?
Thank you. My first reaction would be that we are learning the wrong things. In the sense that cybersecurity is still considered very much as a security issues, which is 100% true for national security, for the defense. There are many issues where we have to be careful, and this is somehow keeping fragmentation across Europe because national sovereignty is still there. We're talking about European sovereignty, but national sovereignty is still there. Then you have the interest of the different companies who want to keep things separate or not sufficiently known about their attacks and so on. Even if we have seen that this FireEye attack has been now why it was so important that it spread everywhere, and we will pay probably some consequences in the near future. The point is that, nevertheless, from a certain point of view, for an objective point of view, cybersecurity market is something like around, well, we estimate about 80% a private market. But still, this private market in Europe is still, well, in the US, you have a global, wider market, private market on cybersecurity. In Europe, we have this private market, which should be more liberal, more free, with more potential to develop and to consolidate. It's still fragmented also because of this somehow traditional background, which is linked to defense, security, national laws, especially national laws. Don't get me wrong about defense and security, but especially national laws, how you apply this to national laws. So when we go to regulations, it's much easier, but look at the NIS directive, the transposition of the NIS directive to national level. It didn't help very much. Maybe it helped the maturity of considering cybersecurity as an issue in critical infrastructure, but didn't really help that much in the growth of cybersecurity market applied to cybersecurity, because the transposition is different and created some concern in the user for exchange of incidents report and so on. So we are still, this malfragmentation is still there for a while, because our traditional view of cybersecurity as something which is coming from our traditional approach, from large companies, defense companies, and so on. Sorry, I know that we have Gabi and Wim, which are in the defense sector, but this is what I feel, is that if we want to speed up and have a higher dynamics, we have to conserve this, of course, this very strategic approach for national security and so on, but at the same time to be more dynamic in all the approach which are linked to the private sector for those activities, those solutions, and so on, which really will dynamize the manufacturing, the recovery after the COVID, and so on. And these are something which is important for the economy and for the society. Gabi.
Yeah, if I may, Luigi, you said we are from the defense sector. Maybe we should, MOD, internet, ARPANET, the whole internet result, and also Syria and so on came from such defense-funded projects. But I would like to see this. We are still thinking about isolation, about silos. You're doing defense, you're doing this, and doing that, and doing that. I think this is the wrong way. I think we need, IT is all. It is the fundament of our digital society, regardless if I'm using it for purpose X, purpose Y, or purpose Z. If I'm using it for purpose X or Y, I have my regulations, I have my governance, how to use it. But I think to see really, we are not so many forces that, or so many possibilities that we can really allow us to work and think in silos. We need to collaborate, because we don't have the billions that Amazon, Apple, and so has in, or Tesla has something like in the budget. So the point is really how we can use the resources we have in Europe, build synergies, overcome also not the fragmentation of the people, but fragmentation. You are from the defense sector, you are from the industry sector, and you are from startups. I'm talking not to you, with you. Yeah? That's wrong, because if we will not succeed to overcome fragmentation on several layers and work together, build together, then I think, then we have to confess that we didn't win this race, the race for digital sovereignty. And you see, I'm not politically correct, Luigi. I'm saying what I'm thinking, and my plaidoyer would be to say, let's try to work together. Let's try to build this European ecosystem. We have the strength. For example, Wim, we have the excellent students, but they are going to the US. They are building Facebook. The 100 people, the best 100 people in Facebook are Europeans. Why are they building Facebook? Why don't they build Europe? So we need to rethink how we are doing today, to give the possibilities that young people are here building startups, have industrial policies. They say, have some part national security, and sorry, then only a European company can provide the products for this. Not in US, not in China, but European one. And on the other side, we have to bring this research and industry, startups, investment funds, European Investment Bank is a really good part, together. And this would be my vision for 2030. Also green technology, a Green Deal, perfect. It does not work without IT. We will never have a Green Deal if we don't trust the IT that we are using, especially in managing smart grids and whatever. So maybe to rethink, go step back and say what is good, what is not so good. Let's try to think different. And I think this is the point that we need to do. Try to think different, have other synergies, have the resources we have in separate parts, work together, bring together to build the Europe, the strong IT Europe we need and we want.
I agree with you. I agree with you, Gabi, that, I mean, we still, we are used, the pilots and ECSO, we are used to work together with the community, and we know that we have to break through the silos. But still, I see too many people remaining in their silos in Europe. And this is the challenge we have ahead of us, because we can dream about all the technologies we want in 2030, the privacy and so on and so forth. But if we don't give the education and the awareness to the decision maker, to the citizens, to the students today, this is for me probably the most urgent challenge we have today. we cannot be in 2030 where we want to be if we don't create the human support for that. And this should be done now.
Maybe just to answer the question from Lily and Erich Staudacher, I know both very well. Lisa, Erich, nice to meet you. I think it's, of course, the part what defense and space really need. That's true. But we need to work together. Maybe we need to talk more together and to rethink parts and to see, let's have it different. In the IT developing an exponential size, it's nothing more important to rethink, to be agile, to be dynamic, to think in other parts. And maybe we should just talk together. And here another part, H2, the unit H2, DG H2. There was an event, a synergy in terms of how can we combine defense-based and civil cybersecurity together to see what are the synergies. How can we, according to the Commissioner von der Leyen, to see how can we bring people together, and maybe just to rethink and have the vision and have the courage to build this strong IT Europe.
Thank you. We have 1 more minute to close. Just one word for closing, not 3 words like previously with Enisa. Just one word. What is the key word you want to say at the very end? Thibaut starts.
Thanks. Just for the word of the end, I think that those pilots are an opportunity to test different governance models. And I hope that this will be very helpful and that we will be able to join our forces for Europe afterwards, building on the best of each model.
Okay. Wim.
One word, ambition. We need to be ambitious. Yeah, that's it.
Okay. Kai.
Okay, working together was said. I think learning together is important. To pick up what you said, one of the elements where we could also do maybe some more learning together is cyber ranges, which I think we have great expertise in building up, trying to get some of this moved to the civil scenarios. I'm saying that also because in CyberSec for Europe, we're trying to move that forward with the cyber challenge in Jyväskylä in January, where we're trying to get some of these methods that has been developed for cyber ranges also to be used in the civil society for civilian applications. And I think that can be another trend of learning and working together that is important.
Okay, thank you. Gabby.
I'm using 3, if I may. Trust, cooperation, and ambition. I like this, what Wim said. These are the 3 from my side.
Thank you. And I will close with the word investing. Investing together, public and private, because public alone is not sufficient, public and private, to optimize resources. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for your participation in this long discussion. And thank you to all the people who were with us, more than 110 participants in the call. And Kai, do you want to say the last word? Mark, who is saying the last words on behalf of the organizer?
And actually, there is first Thibaut talking about the day. If I'm not
sorry. I was
exactly.
I wanted to close. I wanted to close the panel. Fine.
Exactly. No, Thibaut has the summary of the day, and then finally Kai have the closing words.